special guests for visiting us all the
Thank
way
you.
from DC, our chairman, Dan, and then our deputy mayor. So I'm going to hand it over for the deputy mayor to officially welcome you to the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well, personally, thank you for coming and visiting us here, Aurora, your home. Our home is your home. You're always welcome. Receive you with open arms. On behalf of the mayor, who could not be here, I am the deputy mayor, Guillermo Trujillo. Everybody calls me Memo. And just want to say that Aurora has a lot to offer. We have a lot of businesses, a lot of small businesses that could benefit from your visit. And I am just so pleased to have you here in our humble home. And I have a small token that I like to present to our guests. It's a small token nevertheless, but it's the logo of Aurora that if you'd like to present to you.
Thank you, Jim. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a way of representing Aurora
Nice.
and to let you know that our doors are always open to our staff, our facility to come and visit us again. Don't make it the first, don't make it the last, just come back. And we'll be more than happy to, like the mayor says, and his favorite words is, we're open for business. Bring your business, let us look at it, let's look at it together, evaluate it, and see how we can benefit yourselves, ourselves, and our citizens. So I appreciate your coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for hosting us, and Toyin for putting up Aurora as the site for this Illinois DEC meeting, as well as hosting the vice chair here. I think this is the first DEC meeting that I've been to that's been outside of Chicago city limits. And this was quite a drive for me. It was about an hour and 15. The weather changed on the way out here too. And I had to stop for gas. So, but you know, it's great that we're out here because there's people in this room like Toyin's from here, but there's people who drive even further to come to these DEC meetings, right? And as the deputy mayor said, Aurora is open for your business. And you know, that's sort of our logo too with the U.S. Department of Commerce. The world is open for your business, right? We're here because we're interested in expanding your business and also the opportunities for U.S. businesses internationally, as well as to grow your sales and also to, at the end of the day, grow jobs back here in the United States, right? So I'm glad to be out here in Aurora. I'm looking forward to maybe more DEC meetings potentially out here or in other locations across Illinois, not just in Chicago, because we have been a little bit Chicago heavy. But thank you everyone for making a drive out here, and just want to hand it over to Sam, as all of you know, as the DEC chair, just for some opening comments and remarks too as well.
Well, Dan, thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you. And Honorable Judith Pryor, thank you for joining us. I heard two good things. First, that he drove long time. And I heard he bought gasoline on the way.
Yes.
I'm in a good mood. I can't thank enough, obviously, your hospitality, but we are very honored always to work with Toyin, who really leads our media, I guess we can say our media department of IDEC. She has definitely done this, and I think the key here with this, as everybody in today's technology, in today's world, it's so crucial that communication and media play a role. And I can tell you, Ms. Pryor, that this has really truly helped get our awareness and communication out with Dan's help and Dan's team. But allow me to definitely welcome a Chicago Aurora welcome to Honorable Judith Pryor, who comes from Washington, D.C. We are very honored to have you here. I wish we can do better with the weather, but hopefully you drove just as much as Dan and
We
used
got
as much
inside.
gasoline.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure we're traversing the
Yes.
city limits for sure.
Excellent. I think there are a lot of people you meet over the years. We're very fortunate that we've had a lot of guests over the years from Washington, D.C. And one of the things that I always ask is if they can truly help not only talk about what they really do, but more importantly, their experience. And we're very honored in the short time I've spoken to out of prior here has been the global experience. And we thank you and we hope you will share that with us because, you know, our primary goal is to grow exports. And everyone here, without saying, has committed their life, their families. We are so honored to have such a great team, a great IDEC family with that. But I'd like to recognize two other people who have really, over the years, helped us beyond the call of duty, and that's that young lady back there, Ursula. She has a long Polish name that I won't attempt.
Oh, come on.
And there's no doubt, I think, the alliance of Dan and his team, I know he has a couple of team members here, I did see Eric. Dan has been a key pillar to stand behind our program on behalf of the Department of Commerce. We appreciate that as well. Last but not least, we do have some international guests, Toyin, and I'd like to take a moment to thank the people visiting us here from Jordan. The Minister of Digitalization prior and now one of our allied countries, as you have experience with Jordan. I know Dan has always hosted, and Hama also joining him here. So we appreciate. Welcome to our family, and this is truly our family. And on behalf of IDEC, Aurora, Department of Commerce, we thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
We appreciate.
Thank you. My pleasure. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I'm honored to be welcomed so warmly by Deputy Mayor Trujillo, so thank you so much. And Dan, Commerce and EXIM Bank work very closely hand in hand on many things on a regular basis. I was just in Costa Rica, had the great honor and pleasure of traveling with Secretary Raimondo related to the semiconductor industry for a program down in Costa Rica that we're working on together. And we truly do rely on all of you. When I think of our partners, but first thank you to you, Sam, too, for your gracious hosting. But I would say that the DECs, the USIACs, our regional staff like Ursula and Mike, most of you know them, broker partners that we work with, it is because really of people like you. You're the examples of how we can partner to advance our mission and improve local and global communities. We cannot do it alone. I like to think of XM as the Thomas Tank Engine of the government world, because we're like that little engine that could, and we're pushing up the hill because we really are a small independent agency of less than 500 people. We're celebrating our 90th anniversary this year. Established by FDR, 1934, during some really rocky times here in the United States, with the mission of facilitating the exchange of goods and services and helping to finance those. So the first transaction XM ever did was a $5 million sale of silver ingots to Cuba. I don't think we could do that today. No. But we certainly did it back then, and it was the beginning of many great things, including over $10 billion that have been returned to the United States Treasury in support of deficit reduction, because at the end of the day, we are an agency that does make money. And so as a U.S. taxpayer, you should be very happy for the services of XM and some of our sister agencies, the economic agencies that do charge fees and interest for their financing and their services, but at least we're self-sustainable. So it is a pleasure to be here. I don't know how you'd like me to kind of continue. I could talk a little bit about XM, some new products that we have, if that would be good. Okay.
Yes, I think that would be
I know
great.
that most of you understand really what we do and how we do it. Commerce likes us to travel with them because we bring the money to the table. And that's usually, right? You know what I'm talking about,
Access
Dan.
to
It's like,
capital.
where's XM? I've got to
Yeah.
have access to capital. So we're the money at the table. We have $135 billion cap and our current exposure is about 34 billion. So we have lots of room to grow. And I like to say that, I want us to take a little bit more risk than we do today, but our job is to take on the risk that the private sector won't, either because they can't or they won't. So we end up working very closely with banks and non-bank financial institutions through guarantees and direct loans services that we provide. But at the end of the day, we support U.S. exporters in many ways through short, medium, and long-term financing products. We're known for the big stuff, right? That's the headline stuff. We're the bank of Boeing, as our detractors like to call us, and I couldn't be more proud to be the bank of Boeing, because in those Boeing transactions there are tens of thousands of small businesses feeding into each and every single one of those aircraft that gets sold to a foreign buyer. So very proud to be the bank of Boeing. Those are our long-term transactions, and it's really hard to imagine that someone like Citi or JP or some of the other larger banks would lend $900 million to Ethiopian Airlines without an EXIM guarantee. So that's how we protect our interests and help fulfill our mission, which is a very simple mission, and that is to support U.S. job growth by facilitating exports. Short term, probably the focus of more interest in this room, we provide export credit insurance to small businesses, 30, 60, 90-day terms. We have a number of different products, but it really is designed to help take the risk out of you doing business so that you can focus on sales and selling and doing what you do best, and let us worry about the back end of the risk, right? Let you focus on your business. It's hard enough to be a small business owner these days. You're doing everything. You're doing payroll, you're doing light bills, right? You're doing everything. You're doing new business, marketing, everything across the board. So to think that you have to worry about that, we don't want you to worry about that. It's the largest group within the agency is our small business division. And within our small business division, there's another subset that was mandated in one of our reauthorization bills by Congress, and we're celebrating our 25th anniversary. So we have 2 anniversaries this year, 90 years in business, 25 years for the minority and women-owned business department within our small business group. And that just means a little extra attention to women-owned, minority-owned, including vets and those with disabilities, to provide them with a little extra care and service along the way to get them interested in exporting, to help them understand what the products and services are that we offer and how we can help de-risk their transactions overseas. And we have a new product that I will mention for fear of getting in trouble with Ursula, and I don't want to ever get in trouble with Ursula because I adore Ursula and she's been doing a great job these past few days, and I know these past few years working with you. But it's called Equity Express, and you can learn more about it on our website. But I would just say, just in a nutshell, that it's a new insurance policy that is designed to help those first-time exporters, usually minority and women-owned businesses. But we will walk you through the process. There will be a person who will hold your hand every step of the way, and then we have a dedicated underwriter to help with that transaction so that you can understand how EXIM works. And of course, the goal, self-serving, is that they'll graduate from the program. They'll realize how important exporting is, because exporting is really important. 40% of U.S. small businesses are run by women,
Yes.
but only 15% export. That's a terrible number, right? So that's my goal. My mission is to get more minority and women exporting, because it's a really important opportunity for them that they should take advantage of. So with this new tool, we hope to bring more people into the fold, and then they can graduate into some of our other programs, which again, we're the government. We're not in this really to make a profit. That's a nice byproduct because we are taking a tremendous amount of risk. on the upside for some of the larger projects particularly. But our objective is to help facilitate exports, which in turn helps with job creation here in the United States. So why don't I stop there for a little? I could talk about, I have a couple new products, I have a couple of other things, but I'll stop here and throw it back to you, Sam.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we took notes on all this, right? I think what's important, you've hit on, if you allow me to, just a couple of points that I think very important for us. One of the things we're striving for, which we've been very fortunate, is truly our women LDEC leadership. And as I look across here, that is something that we want to continue to nurture. Being raised by a mom, I know how important women is. And I think what's key to our ladies here who really work with us is the fact that these are programs tailored for them. So thank you for that. I think, Toyin, we might want to open the format to questions so we can give our team and our members the opportunity to ask questions as well as our guests, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Ursula, okay,
I'll
good.
just ask, please, if you can introduce yourself, right? So please feel free.
I've got one.
Okay.
Paul Jarzani,
Paul.
LR International, the new program you mentioned.
Yes.
So how are companies sort of approved in that category? You mentioned if they're new to export, are there some criteria they have to meet or something?
Ursula, can I throw that one to you, please?
Yeah, so really the new Equity Express program is meant for women, minority, veteran, rural companies who are really new to exporting. And the difference between this policy and kind of the existing ones that we have is that we have an internal servicing team who's really walking the company through the application process and understanding how to perfect a claim and really providing them hands-on service throughout the life that they have that policy and until they can essentially garner enough volume so that we can then refer them to other products and also to our brokerage community.
And could
And
I,
the other thing I'll mention is
Please.
that we're doing the underwriting of the buyer, so a lot of times in our other policies, we do require the U.S. seller to provide us some information on who the counterparty is, who the customer is overseas. And in this case, because these companies are very new, we're taking that, we're going to educate them along the way in terms of how do we do it, we will be doing it for them, so that eventually that's a skill set that they build within the company and learn how to do on their own. And we have also a dedicated underwriter, as Vice Chair Pryor mentioned.
and I just wanted to add something I should have said before. We're open in all sectors. I'm guessing that mostly the people in this room are more focused on the small business aspect, the export credit insurance products and services that we offer. But we're an small independent agency, which means we align with the administration, but we're financed and funded by Congress. So we have competing mandates often, right? Whenever we have a reauthorization bill, there's some back and forth. But here's the one thing that Congress has agreed on, both sides of the aisle, that we should focus more on sub-Saharan Africa, that we need to lean into energy efficiency projects, renewable energy, energy storage, energy efficiency, that women, minority-owned, vet-owned, rural companies have to continue to be a priority for us. And to that end, last year, for example, we financed $8.7 billion worth of funding for various projects. $2 billion of that was supporting small business. That's huge. I mean, that's 25% of our 90% of our transactions in any given year are with small businesses, but 25% of the dollar amount. That's tremendous. And you can imagine, how that works. So some of you have these policies or know what these policies are. So just think about that. It's the big transactions that enable us to take more risk in other areas. But I wanted to share that number with you.
Very important.
And I think we should double. We should be able to double it. I mean, Ursula is just needs to be busier, right? No,
Sign me up.
that's one thing I'd like to have too, is, you know, along with some of the funding from Congress, is more administrative financing so that we could have more people on the ground. So in the meantime, as I mentioned earlier, we have to rely on our UZX and our DECs and our colleagues at Commerce and the smart deputy mayors and cities that understand the importance of trade and how to help your businesses grow and thrive, and educating them about why exporting is so important.
Well said, definitely. Demetrius.
I'm attorney Demetrius Evans, vice president, and it's very, very wonderful to be here. And thank you for coming. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I feel like every time I think I know about EXIM Bank, then I learn so much more. So I have been
Me too.
asked-
Me too.
Okay, good. I have been asked to, on May 15th, to sit on a panel with the vice president of BMO Harris. And so they are invited, they have a new program, in Zero Barriers to Business, where they're going throughout, I don't know if it's throughout the nation, but at least in Illinois, and talking to minority businesses, and really trying to get them to upscale, right? And so then, you know, I'm sure they want me there because as the Illinois DEC representative, I want to make sure they're exporting, because that's a great way to grow the business. But because it's BMO, I'm wondering what is exactly the difference between EXIM Bank and BMO, and how would you suggest that I talk on this panel about the difference in, you know, is it just financial, and if it is financial, what is the financial difference?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with BMO.
Okay, it's just a local bank
Okay.
in Illinois.
Okay, all right. Okay, that helps. So, you know, I would throw it to one of my Illinois colleagues, just because, I mean, I can tell you how we work with banks, but let's get more specific and let them,
I was gonna say that-
and then I have some other ideas.
Yeah, you know, we partner with commercial banks, so, you know, so we're essentially providing them enhancements to make sure that they are providing financing. So from a working capital standpoint, when companies have a need for funding, either a particular purchase order or, you know, in general, funding their export purchases, both us and Small Business Administration will provide guarantees to a BMO, so that they will then extend the lending to, you know, a line of credit to a company here in the United States who has those international contracts.
So maybe I'm talking to them and not necessarily to the participants.
Right, exactly. I mean, you know, the messaging, I guess, is really, to the participants, is making sure that they understand, you know, who, you know, within a bank like BMO, there is going to be a division that understands, and it's a matter of making sure that your relationship manager at BMO knows how to access either SBA or EXIM Bank, or these, you know, essentially these government guarantees. But in those cases, we have a direct relationship really with the bank to get them to do more, and for the benefit of the U.S. company.
Yes.
But on the insurance side, we have a direct relationship with the U.S. company, because they are essentially the ones who are providing credit to a customer overseas, and now we're standing behind the U.S. company saying, go ahead and give the credit because we are comfortable with the risk, and if your customer doesn't pay you for a commercial reason or a political reason, we will.
Demetrius, what I'd like to do is also, obviously, I know you know Steve Olson.
Yes.
So we're very fortunate that Steve is our you know, treasurer, but also he comes from the banking industry, so.
So thank you, so you stole my thunder, no. So, essentially, the reason why you need that enhancement is like if a manufacturer's selling overseas, that receivable from overseas is not, if it's not insured, it's not gonna be part of your borrowing days. So you can't use it for working capital financing. So that's the essence of that they provide, is the ability to say, I can make this product because I know once I sell it, I have cash coming in that I can now mix the next airplane or next widget. And that's what it's really right around, it's around working capital financing.
And then I would just add at the 60,000 foot level that companies that export weather financial storms better than those that don't. They pay a higher wage on average to all of their employees. They employ more women on average than companies that do not export. And if you think about it, 95% of the world's consumers live outside of the United States. So, if they're ready to expand, they need to be looking to other markets to expand. You know, there's 1 billion people plus in China, there's 1 billion people plus in India. Nigeria is about to be the 3rd most populous country on the planet. Sub-Saharan Africa, which we talked about this earlier, didn't we, Toyin? You know, so many American businesses typically don't go to Sub-Saharan Africa, but it's an incredible place, and there's so much growth, and there's so much opportunity there. And again, these new markets, it's a mandate for EXIM to lean in, so encouraging people to sort of go beyond their comfort zones, whether it's in Southeast Asia or Sub-Saharan Africa or other parts of the world. I think it behooves us to encourage them to do so.
I will listen.
Okay.
Excellent question.
Yes, Scott Pappas, Delaware Cromwell. You kind of caught my attention here when you said that part of the programs are designed for some of the renewable markets, renewable energy markets. I was wondering if you might be able to expand on that at all. I'm actually going to a Clean Power in Minneapolis next week. It's the American, one of those acronyms. Anyway, American Clean Power is their annual convention. And so I'm going on behalf of our company looking at our position with that. But could you expand any more about?
Sure. A couple of things. So what I actually said was, you know, we're open in all sectors, but these are some of the areas where we're leaning in. And one thing for, you know, unlike my time at OPIC, EXIM has content requirements. And in order for us to finance a transaction, you have to be financing U.S. goods and services, right? Materials that are being shipped from the United States for that particular project. We've just done a huge project in Angola, 500 megawatts, 500 megawatts of solar, two plants, about $950 million. A sovereign transaction, but just as an example, but they are using all U.S. Companies and components and service providers. So, not everyone can hit this 85%, but what Congress has said is another thing that was in our 2019 reauthorization bill was you have to lean in and compete where China is part of the problem, if you will. So, it's what we fondly call the CTEP program, because we wouldn't be a government agency if we didn't have yet another acronym. So CTEP, which reminds me of one of those old Egyptian gods, right? The name CTEP. China Transformational Exports Program. So what it enables us to, it's designed to help EXIM advance with the goal of advancing America's comparative leadership in the world. But it gives us the flexibility, and we've taken action as a board to reduce the content requirements for projects where we know that there is competition that is being backed by the People's Republic of China, so government-sponsored competition. In order to level, again, designed to level the playing field for American manufacturers and businesses that are competing against unfair practices, right? I mean, if you engage with American businesses, you're going to get that entrepreneurial spirit, you're going to get quality products, excellent customer service, and if you're financing with EXIM, you're going to get transparent financing. You're going to know exactly what it is that you're paying for, and that is not always the case, and we don't know what's always put on the table. True. But Congress has said we will allow you to go outside of OECD regulations, even if there's a direct competition being faced that's backed by the People's Republic of China. So what we've done for that, and it's 10 key sectors, including renewable energy, energy storage, energy efficiency, water sanitation, quantum computing, biotechnology, financial technology, a host of the space sector, my sector, space and technology. And it enabled us, we took an action as a board to lower that content requirement to 51%. So that's huge. I mean, EXIM people have been begging us to do that for 40 years. And no one's really ever had the guts to do it. And we took this action during the last administration when I was on the board, just as a board member. And I think it's one of the most important things that we've done. Because we can't compete, EXIM can't compete with other ECAs, let alone
Absolutely.
against the People's Republic of China financing, if we're not given the ability to provide some flexibility to these finance. So that was a very, very long-winded way. My husband says I talk too much. A very long-winded way of answering your question, but I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Lisa?
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa Waller with BDG International. I'm also the secretary of the IDEC. Can foreign companies come to EXIM directly with the intent to buy from USA, but get kind of pre-qualified and know that they're going to have the backing of EXIM?
Good question.
I think we can, but I don't know to what extent. I mean, we certainly have done letters of interest for exporters in the U.S., saying, we're agreeing that, well, we're going to have to look at it. It's not a guarantee we're going to finance it, but it often helps a U.S. exporter
Like an LOA.
have skin in the game, right from the start. Because many times if they're bidding against others, sometimes the foreign government or entity requires an ECA backing in some cases, or I don't know, if you have the full faith and backing of the United States government, it kind of helps you get in the door a little bit too, I think. Anything you want to add to that?
I was just gonna say, if there is a transaction, or a supplier that the foreign customer is interested in purchasing from, if they are willing to, provide their financials and, kind of the whole gamut to get approved for a loan, we can certainly, do a pre-qualification. Usually we connect them with a financial institution because we're not actually gonna do the direct loan, right? We're gonna provide a guarantee or insurance policy on that, and they will have to provide a 15% down payment, but if they're willing to go through that process, we certainly can.
I think the only thing I would add to this, that we're going through it on a smaller scale, when you have countries who are looking to do an offtake agreement, which is a very important, right, what we call the customer, it's crucial that that offtake agreement has securities built into it, especially in a commodity like we deal with, which is base fuels or alternative renewable fuels that have pricing fluctuations, could be twice a day. So I think what I would recommend for anyone, depending on your price fluctuations and the stability of your price that you're looking to commodity trade, it's crucial, in my opinion, to have an EXIM, because the price that you negotiated at the contract may not be the price that you actually ship out. And one of my questions is there any price fluctuations in that letter of credit, or is it a fixed guardrail?
Don't know. I would imagine there has to be, right?
So you're saying that, so if it was an insurance transaction, the way that, whatever you invoice the customer is what we would be covering.
Okay, good.
Okay? So whatever you invoice.
A US dollar something.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
But you can invoice in other currencies. We're not taking the foreign exchange risk. That's where you gotta talk to Steve and figure out financial strategy or Andrew or whoever. But you can price in whatever currency, but you are the one responsible.
So the invoice is the actual
The invoice is
instrument.
what we
Excellent.
cover, yeah.
That's very important.
Okay.
In commodities, we don't love covering,
Right.
if there's a, you wanna, but.
Did the purchase order indicate what the invoice price was as well? Because
Right.
you can't get a purchase order for one price and an invoice for another, and expect the coverage to be on the two differently.
Yeah.
I think the
Good point,
point
Mike.
is, we see these transactions 3, 4, 5 times a day. There's 100 experts, so call us and we'll get you the right people that can walk through all of these processes with you guys as far as the community, because we have expertise in all of these. They're just in different departments within either 811 Vermont home office or out in the regions. And as far as foreign buyers, what happens closer to salt water, foreign buyers call those offices more as far as foreign buyers than they do the central part of the United States. So they deal with the foreign buyers more often than we do in Chicago. But yes, the pre-qualification is pretty simple. Do you have financials? Are you in this business at least 3 years? We can do that pre-qualification and then introduce them to the U.S. lending structure that can make the loan backed by EXIM Bank's products.
Thank you, Mike.
I'd like to go on that. Now, a letter of credit allows for plus or minus 10% typically. And one of the reasons why is because in logistics, there's fluctuation. Fuel surcharge, all the surcharges. And it seems to me that the seller would then be at a disadvantage. If they're selling in a C term, well, that's one of the requirements. So that seems like it's a little bit too rigid to allow for fluctuation.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we're not gonna allow for like price fluctuation, and our underwriters don't love commodities from the standpoint of, I mean, we can certainly cover them, the export of US commodities, but if, on arrival, in the meantime, while I was on the water, price drops, and the customer says, I don't want it, that's not that's not something that we can cover. Now, if it was not a commodity, but a manufactured good, and for whatever reason the customer didn't take possession, that's a different story. So
But then
it's in the weeds.
This is
like-
what inspires people to ship on an FCA exports term.
Which we hate.
Right.
by the way.
This is why they do it, because you're not allowing any level of fluctuation on that.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. Tom?
So, Tom Nealon, First Bank Chicago. I'm just interested from a big picture standpoint. When you look at the entire country, and specifically when you look at major metropolitan areas like Chicago, and you compare, and I assume you have the stats that can make these comparisons, but when you look at Chicago and you say, how do they stack up against the other major metropolitan areas utilizing our services? And where is that opportunity for growth? What do you see?
I don't have those stats in front of me. I will tell you that California is one of the largest exporters in the country. No surprise to anyone in this room. They use our services a lot. They have multiple diasporan populations in California, and they are very, very, very pro-export, as is Washington State, who runs a trade surplus. I'm not sure about Illinois, but what I do know about Illinois is that there's lots of room to grow. Total exporters, only 238. Total small businesses, 175. Total financing, this is from 2014 to last year's numbers, $3 billion. Now, I've just given you a $2 billion number for 1 year, so I'm thinking Chicago might not be up there in the top 10, but it should be. You're on a Great Lake, right? There are ways for you to, you're right next to Canada, right? Anyway, I will stop there. I don't know what the rankings are. Maybe Mike does. I honestly don't know, but I know that, the coasts tend to be bigger exporters just by virtue of where them and port cities.
It's also important to realize who the customer that comes to EXIM is. Some of those larger, really big companies have grown out of us over the years and have moved into the private sector, which is where they should be. So we're not trying to be the home for everybody. We're trying to get those small businesses, grow them, so that then they can go to the private markets. There's 26 private insurance companies out there that do the same type of thing that EXIM Bank does once you grow to a certain level. As a matter of fact, every year we go through our portfolio and say, is this a company that should be introduced to the private market so that Congress does not say you are competing against this market? So be careful as far as the statistics that you're asking for, because one of our goals is to grow those companies out of EXIM Bank and then take that select risk where the private sector is not taking it.
Right.
So you may have an Atradius, Jackie and others can back this up. They have a private sector policy, but the private sector won't take it. They'll come to EXIM Bank for that one transaction.
Yeah.
So we got to look at the markets that we're trying to fill in those numbers. So we don't want to be everyone's home. We want to grow them out. We want to get them articulate enough so the banker and the private sector could say, you don't need EXIM Bank anymore.
Yeah.
Come to us in the private sector.
Thank you. No, that's so perfect. No, I'm so glad you did, because that is a perfect point. And if I didn't say it, I should have. We don't compete with the private sector. If we did, we would have been shut down in a New York minute. And it's very important. And we have to prove many of our transactions, particularly the larger ones, that we are actually what we call additional in the project, right? That they have gone to banks and non-banks, financiers who have said, sorry, we are not taking this risk, go to an ECA. So we have to prove that, and we document that, and so it's very important. And that's why I like to say we complement. And Mike's absolutely right. The best thing that we can do at XM is to graduate our customers out of our programs and to put ourselves out of business.
So back to the Equity Express product.
Yes.
Is there any special campaign in the works to reach the people that you?
Yes, absolutely.
Find? Because just getting the word out on XM
Is hard.
challenge.
I know. And we are trying so hard. And when COVID hit, we were shut down, you may recall, for many years. And then we were open, and I was part of the board that came back on May 8th of 2019. And I mean, I've just never seen so much excitement in one room with employees. It was just such a great moment. And then a year later, not even a year later, COVID hit, right? And it was a completely different ball game. So we had to first look at our own portfolio and make sure we were all shored up and protected, right? Before we could do other things. But as far as that goes, I know that we did a big pivot with our small business marketing at that moment, and everything had to become an online campaign. So webinars, all the seminars then became webinars, right? We all got to be experts at Teams and Zoom and all the other things. I mean, how many of you were sitting in your living room and maybe not the guys, but yoga pants and a nice blouse with a pretty scarf on top, right? And tennis shoes, and but it really brought home to me all the work that team was doing in the small business shop to get the word out, because now more than ever we really had to figure out a way on how to reach people. So they are reaching out, but if you want more information or additional info, or Toyin and I talked about this morning, like, let's do a special webinar for the diaspora community or exporters to a particular region or in a particular sector. We're happy to tackle those. If you can help us pull together some lists, we would be happy to entertain special webinars specifically for this bit of information to get out to your community as well. So work with us. Yeah.
Has it been officially launched?
It's been officially launched last Friday. So brand new.
Vice Chair, I have two quick questions.
Yes, sir.
If you are a customer overseas and you are not aware of XM, are our embassies established an XM contact, or is it under the trade, the international trade? Is it under the department?
It's both, and I'm sure that Dan would like to comment on this too. I will say, we couldn't do it without commerce, but there are commercial service officers at each of our embassies. So, and where there aren't, there are foreign service officers that are members of the State Department, and we do our best to help train them when they're in town, provide them with just the little tutorials so that they have enough information about XM to be dangerous, and hopefully call us on the phone when we can help. But yes, the embassies are an incredible asset and opportunity, particularly the commercial service.
And that's why it's so important that we have this domestic offices here. And I have a relationship with Ursula and Mike in our office, right? We're a UZAC, a U.S. Export Assistance Center, where we bring a package of resources to an exporter. And when a company comes to us, we try to counsel them not just on finding them a distributor and like finding a buyer on due diligence, but also those products that XM could have to protect themselves in the country, make sure they get paid, and also offer financing and be, as Mike likes to say, a world-class seller, right? So, yeah.
Thank you. The other question is, as we are in a volatile world, and I'm sure it's going to continue to be volatile in this wonderful world, are there a list that basically says the following countries at this time are excluded, or the following products at this time are excluded, and where would we be able to go to get the most up-to-date information?
So you can find that on our website. So www.exim.gov, G-O-V. And we are, for the most part, we are open in all sectors and almost all countries. A few obvious suspects or players would come to mind right about now, maybe Iran, maybe Russia. We're not doing anything in those
Not naming any.
particular countries. We don't finance military goods or services, but we do have a policy in place if it's a dual use. So everything's not excluded, but anything with a trigger or a scope is not going to get financed by EXIM. But there are other things that perhaps the military does use, but have a commercial aspect to them that we can finance. So the best thing to do, and then there are other countries where, just lower income countries where maybe their debt to GDP ratio is just way too high at the moment, and the IMF or the World Bank have said, we need to back off, or maybe they're about to enter Paris Agreement. Ghana comes to mind. Ghana was in great shape until a couple of years ago, and now we've kind of had to pull back a little. We're still open there, but for short term. So it just depends on the country and the place, but the obvious suspects you can think of, not going to happen. But for the most part, we're open across the board around the world.
In your experience, if you had to remember the most successful, simple transaction of a success story, what would that be?
Can I just use one that I like to talk about?
You're the boss.
All right. Well, Weldy Lamont is a company based in a suburb of Chicago, and I've met the folks from Weldy, and they're just wonderful, and they have, and it's in one of my favorite parts of the world. So this was a project in West Africa, in Senegal, and it is a rural electrification and an extension of the distribution grid. So it's a combination of both. It's microgrids for rural areas, right? So good, clean, green energy, which means they're not going to be able to build the grid out to 400 small villages, but microgrids will be perfect. And they're going to start with some of those. And it's the expansion of the grid. I have it right here in front of me. Mount Prospect, that's where they live. Rural electrification in Africa, which is a big push. Each president seems to have their entry point to Africa, right? During the Bush administration, it was PEPFAR. During the Clinton administration, it was AGOA. During the Obama administration, it was Power Africa, and during the Trump administration, it was Prosper Africa, right? Sort of an extenuation of that, but just one-to-one. So each administration really tries to do more in Africa, and we've actually done it. And Weldy is one of those companies that the story makes me smile because it's a perfect example of, yes, we financed it, but commerce was involved, and state was involved, and the embassy. There were so many. It was like a truly whole of government approach to get this over the finish line and to provide electricity, just basic needs of the people of Senegal, so that children could not have to read by candles or flashlight and hope the batteries didn't die. There's just so many things that you could think of about rural electrification and how important it is and how lucky we are in this country. And I know that most of you have traveled to parts of the world where it's not that way, and I've spent quite a bit of time in Africa in particular and South Asia. And you'd be surprised. You'd be sitting in a conference room and 2:00 and the lights would go out, and that meant I'm on the 12th floor. It meant the elevators weren't working and nothing was working, and nobody moves. And I said, well, what happened? The power's out. So I was in India.
Sure.
Oh, I don't know. Could be an hour. Could be a couple. We'll just have to see what happens. And I thought, we are so spoiled in this country with all the things that we have. So
we are.
Anyway, Weldy Lamont. I thought I'd use my favorite example, which happens to be based in the great state of Illinois.
Absolutely, and I think Frank was actually, wasn't he?
Previously.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Frank was
Okay.
an LDEC member.
Such a
and
nice guy. Okay.
So you really hit the jackpot.
I didn't know that. All right, good.
Excellent,
All right.
great. Are there any more questions or Any,
I got one.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
When are you up for reauthorization?
2026.
oh, good.
Is that right? Or 25? 26, yeah. 2026. Right, so I can't ask you to do anything on our behalf, right? But we're up for reauthorization in 2026. And I'm sure that your Congress members would love to hear about how important EXIM is to the businesses of Illinois.
Absolutely, especially in agriculture.
Toyin?
Yes, just direct advice for our city, Aurora, since we have the opportunity
Yes.
to send a message. Let's I want to take advantage of it. Any direct message to the city, because the mayor is really big, administration is big on economic development. I really want to drive on the fact that you said companies that export, the value to the city that hosts them is quite impactful. So any next steps for the city?
Yeah. You know, I have a strong background in marketing, communications, sales, and all I would say is, you know, with all the noise, it used to be so much simpler when we were younger back in the day, you know, but honestly, there's so much noise now, but the more that you can just continue to drive home that message of how beneficial it is to export, if they're export ready, you know, and how you want to help partner to do that, whether it's hosting roundtables like this, or webinars, or coming to our conference in June and talking a little bit about what the people of Aurora can bring to the international arena. I think there's so much that can be done, but it always comes back to, does anybody really know who can help them? So you know, by working with the UZACs locally, I think they're a tremendous asset to us. So they must be a tremendous asset to you as well, I would think.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
I don't know if that's helpful.
We'll pass
Just
that message
marketing,
along,
right?
and definitely is something that we need to focus a little bit more on.
Yeah.
We're bringing businesses in, and exporting needs to be the next step into
Right.
our economic development
Right,
process.
right.
So thank you. Thank you for bringing this
Thank
to
you.
our citizens.
Thank you so
and,
much.
Again, you're more than welcome to come and use our facility anytime.
What a beautiful facility.
Thank
Yeah.
you, and we still got more coming.
Okay, all right, stay tuned then, I guess. Thank
Are
you.
there any questions?
Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah, I want to highlight real quickly, May is World Trade Month, and we have quite a number of actually Illinois DEC members who are involved in projects that are happening this month. Sam and Lisa will be traveling to Tradewinds in Istanbul, Turkey, in 2 weeks. And I think Lisa actually leaves just next week, very soon.
Yeah.
So, and I will be going to as well. The National DEC Conference is in Washington, D.C., and I think Steve and Paul will be going to that. And they'll be representing the ILDEC there too. It's
Reauthorization.
can't comment on
Okay,
that.
you get the gold
but-
star for the day.
But yeah. But you know, if it's your first time there, it's a great experience. You know, think about all these businesses from across the country and these leaders in their communities who are coming. It's a great opportunity for you to network, to learn more about exporting, and to network and learn from those people, but also to make friends too as well. And then to go to the Hill, right? That's something that you'll be doing, and to take advantage of those type of opportunities. But yeah, it's really great to see everyone in the room here today to make it out to here. Thank you again for hosting us here in Aurora. Toyin for making this happen. And yeah, definitely, you know, we're a resource, me, EXIM, we're one package most of the time we try to be. We want to educate the citizens of Aurora as well as the citizens of Illinois to let them know that we are here to help them to grow. And it could be a big company or it could be someone working from their home making candles, right? Like that's something we do. Home businesses that export, we work with those companies too. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. With that, the official thank you. We cannot thank you enough, and hopefully it'll be sunnier and brighter and hopefully you guys will get stuck in traffic and spend more gas.
And it was brought to my attention that Two Brothers Brewery is just down the street.
Yes.
So, definitely if you could bring some economic boost to this area, might as well, right? If you're here,
Absolutely.
might as well
You're
enjoy.
gonna get stuck in traffic,
Yeah.
waste the gas, get something to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A restaurant, and enjoy it.
I agree. Thank you for hosting
Yes.
us.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Toyin, as always, and
I got my
thank you,
Aurora
Vice
pin.
Chair.
Yep.
Thank
My
you very
pleasure,
much.
thank you,
Pleasure.
Sam.
Thank
It's
you.
been a pleasure.
Pleasure. Dan?
Great. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Dan.